Hello, and welcome to the unofficial tour exploration guide to VirSyn's CANTOR 2. Before we jump into the user interface, I'm going to give you some information that I pretty much pulled from Wikipedia, but in summary. So, CANTOR was released 4 months after the original release of Vocaloid. VirSyn released this program in both English and German, and boasted about a variety of voices, from near-realistic sounding ones to highly expressive vocals and or robotic voices. CANTOR is not based on singing samples like your modern-day vocal synthesizers, like Utao, Vocaloid, Synthesizer V, etc. So therefore you cannot create your own voice. However, you can modify these voices and play with the properties of it. This is not intended to replicate a real singer's voice and was purely intended for special effects. This program can be run either in standalone mode or as a plugin. We're using the standalone version because that's just what I have. Before purchasing CANTOR, you're going to need a USB dongle to run off of, specifically from Synchrosoft, meaning that you would go onto VirSyn's site and purchase a dongle through another site, because it redirects you to it. I didn't have to do this because I am a pirate. VirSyn also offers other synthesizers, which I have not studied myself. English input is typically in ARPABET and German is typically in Xampa. However, you can load an English voice bank. And over here, when you select German, it's ARPABET, and say for example, and I load a German voice, I can press on American English, and usually it will change the phoneme but you can also input phonemes. However, in German, you cannot use lowercase. CANTOR simply won't let you. My caps lock is off. I'm not holding down the shift bar. I simply cannot find a way to type in... Okay. I cannot find a way to type, in lowercase in CANTOR, so pretty much you're stuck with ARPABET, so you better learn some ARPABET real quick. And despite being a rival to Vocaloid, this can be purchased from Krypton Future Media's site. Alright, finally diving into the user interface, we are looking at the Score tab. And I'm just going to start from here all the way down. So right here, this is your tempo, and in order to change it, you have to hold down and drag it up and down. When I first played with CANTOR, I thought that you could not change the tempo at all. And in order to change this, I'm on a laptop, this is going to be hard. In order to change this value, you hold down on it, press shift, and drag like so. Over here is how much swing you want in your score. I'm not gonna lie, I do not really notice a difference when I use this. And it's funny because you can't save your swing on like your project files. So whenever you want to add this swing thing, you're gonna have to remember this number that you're using. Because CANTOR is not saving that shit. Over here, quantize, beats per bar. Over here is where your measure is, your measure header. This funky little line. And you cannot disable quantize. And you cannot disable the beats per minute. Right here is the play button, obviously. We all know this. Pause/stop button. This is the looping button. This, whenever you open up a project, it will automatically be on. You can turn it off. However, this yellow highlighted part, this part is your loop. And you, regardless if you have this off, you need to drag this over your entire project file, and then you would go here and select render loop. You will need this. You cannot disable this. CANTOR just uses this to render. Right here is to go to the end of the score. This is for navigation. I personally use this because I'm on a laptop, but you can also navigate by dragging here. And this is to go to the first bar, pretty much. Like, it doesn't go to, like, the first, you know, like, part of your selection here. It's always the first bar, which sucks. Right over here, on the floppy disk, you have options such as new project, loading a project, saving a project, importing a MIDI, load voice, save voice, render loop, and render choir loop. Now, an important note for importing MIDIs, it primarily supports .mid instead of .midi. So it supports .mid files, but not MIDI files. Because one time I was trying to load up a Lovejoy song into CANTOR, and that shit just closed. It was like, nope, we're not singing this bullshit. So my recommendation is, you know, if you are using a VSQX, open it in OpenUtau, save it as a UST, open up Utau, and then render it as a MIDI. I personally recommend editing, if it's in Romaji, if it's in Hiragana, I personally recommend going through and typing out all the lyrics, or if it's a VCCV or CVVC voice bank, you know, you're gonna have to, like, merge some notes and fix some things within, like, the UST, and then you're good to go. CANTOR doesn't save tuning, so you're gonna have to learn how to tune. This can also note bend, but it's not super smooth. Depending on how you're tuning it, it generally does not sound smooth. Over here, if you want to modify your voice's properties, this is where you can rename the voice, such as, you know, in my case, my customized primary voice bank is Bozich, and it is a modified version of Hall 1, which is also a voice bank option. There's Hall 1 and Hall 2, by the way. This is Hall 1, but we are going to, you know, be with Nikki. Over here, you can just put the name of your project here. I guess it's just to look fancy, honestly. You don't have to necessarily change this. You could just save the project as whatever, you know, name it and such. Over here, if you're to left click on this logo here, it says CANTOR 2, the vocal machine, and it gives some credits. This build of CANTOR 2 is from November 28th, 2006. Oh lord, in order to exit out of it, you have to click on it. But a little fun Easter egg that I found while reading the manual, if you're to right click on here, you can change the colors of CANTOR. So, if you want a pink CANTOR, you can have a pink CANTOR, or you can have a whole ass hellscape in many, many different colors too. Like, you can have a pink hellscape. Fuck it. But for this demonstration, we're going to be sticking to the normal skin because it's going to be easier for us to see. Over here is where you select between German and American English. If you're going to be working with German voice banks, I recommend just switching this to American English because you're not going to be able to type lowercase otherwise. So this one is pretty fucking pointless. Right here, so when I first got CANTOR, I thought that this was just it. I thought this was like as high as it can go and as low, but thanks to the manual, you can drag up and the highest is, you know, right here. So yeah, you just drag your mouse up and down here. Pretty simple. Oh, it also goes to C-1. That's cool. Don't know why anyone would want that, but okay. Also, over here, this will display what note you're in and what time, you know, where your cursor is, which is pretty cool and kind of handy. Alright, in order to draw some notes, you're going to select the pen tool. and I'm going to disable this again. You're going to select the pen tool. This is where you put in lyrics, and it'll display the phoneme here and here. And this is where you can adjust the phoneme timing, which I highly recommend because sometimes CANTOR will drag out like the L because, you know, my general rule is that consonants should not be any higher than 70. So I like to lower them down to like around 60, 70 seconds or whatever. And then same with like ending ones. Over here is portamento view. This is where you tune. I'm going to warn you guys, sometimes it is a pain in the ass to tune in CANTOR, and I'll show you why. So say, for example, you want this pitch bend to go up, and then, you know, like that. So sometimes CANTOR will just strip do that. It might be because the notes are not completely connected, so connect them. But also, you have, like, this ugly-ass fucking straight line that is just gonna sound, you know, like shit. I love you. So, it takes some patience and practice to tune in this. What you're gonna do is, like, you know, scroll. You're gonna basically zoom in, which I can do pinching the track fucking thingy on my laptop. And then you can go over and try to, like, refine it and hope that CANTOR listens. So I just, like, rounded this. And, you know, you're just gonna have to really just show CANTOR who's the boss. Like, this is a bit better, I suppose. Won't sound very great. I love you. Okay. Over here is vibrato view. What's really cool about this is that you can draw it, and it will also follow the pitch bends. And I'm going to show you how to make a voice bank growl. This over here is the vibrato rate. You are going to turn it between like 60, 70, or 80. If you turn it up all the way to like 172, it's not going to, it's either not going to work or it's just going to sound like gross. So I generally have it around like 78. And over here, whenever you drag it, if you move your cursor up, you can just make her just go absolutely goddamn nuts. And warning, lower your volume. Well, that doesn't really sound growly, but I mean, if I were to do this, well, you'd have to play around with it, frankly. And there is a setting within the voice tab that can influence the vibrato rate. Over here, it's snap to grid. It's always automatically enabled. You can disable it if you want. Okay, over here, this is the undo button, and y'all better pay the fuck attention, otherwise you're gonna be so fucking frustrated. And I'll show you another reason why you'll be frustrated here in a fat minute. This undo button is okay if you know, want to remove a note. I just pressed it, and when I go into vibrato view, it's gone. And if I keep doing it, it basically erases all of your tuning. So basically, all those hours you spent tuning and you fuck up in one place and you're like, oh, just undo. Do not fucking do it. Use the damn eraser tool or fix it. I'm dead serious. You will be pissed the fuck off. And this also applies to these parameters down here, which I'll talk about in a bit. So if you add like tension down here, and instead of like just like, you know, like even if I were to like edit the tension a little bit here and there multiple times, and then you press undo, it undoes it all. Like all of it. The only reason why I would use the undo button is if you are playing around with hell, it even undid this lyric. The only reason why I recommend using this is in note view, but even then, it's kind of just, no, just fuck this. Alright, I'm gonna draw in some random pitch bends and add like some vibrato. Not gonna sound good, but whatever, it's demonstration. Over here, is where you can copy these notes. So you go into note view, select the cursor tool, and then you select it as so. And then right here is copy, and this is paste. You can also copy and paste over in here too. Also, you can also, whenever you do this, it copies the pitch bends, which is pretty cool. But if you just want to copy only pitch bends and no vibrato, what you can do, I believe this will work, is you would select these your notes, and then right click, copy automation, and then over here you would select it, and then over here it says paste to, pitch, vibrato, volume, tension, open, and breath, which are settings down here. Let's just say I only want vibrato. Okay, it does it's a little fucky sometimes, but generally it works pretty okay. Like, I mean, for example, if I just want, like, for example, if I just want a pitch bend from this here, you go into portamento view, select which pitch bend you want, go over to copy automation, and then paste to pitch. And see, it works pretty fine whenever you do that. However, do not use this method of copying automation and pasting it if you're dealing with a chorus and you don't feel like tuning it constantly. Because the pitch bends will go kind of funky. So I recommend, if you're gonna do that, do it in chunks. But otherwise, it does work. Over here, obviously, the eraser tool. You can erase portamento like that. If you don't want vibrato, you can erase it like that. And if you just don't want this note, you just press, delete. Whenever you right-click, you have, your basic options like select, pin, eraser, basically all this bullshit up here. And, pretty much all of your bullshit. But what's cool about this is that you can loop all of the notes. It will loop from the beginning of this note to the end of this one. Or it can loop a selected note. Like, say, for example, I just want this note to be looped. You just loop selected, and it will just loop this. Or you can select loop window, and as you can see, it just looped where my window was, and you could, expand that, or you can even just like zoom in and just have it, select this part. So that might come in handy. Personally, I just drag it from here all the way to wherever I want it. Now, looking down here, this is where you will view your phonemes and where you will edit your phonemes. Notably, what I've noticed with these phonemes is that typically, like, phonemes like L, R, U, no, not U, I mean Y, and W, they tend to be a bit longer than they should be. So what I like to do is just move it towards like 70 or 60, and it sounds a bit better. I love you. See, she's aggressively in love with you. Over here, we'll be talking about those in a bit. Right here, you have your tension. You can even have like just the selector here enabled, and you could just draw on the tension. You have to hold down your fucking mouse and select like that. This is volume, so if you want her to be more soft or quiet, you can just like adjust this like so. Also, CANTOR is pretty friendly if your laptop or your device. You can use touchscreen basically with CANTOR. So what I can do is, I'm using my finger right now. I can draw on like so, and it responds pretty well. I am not sure about portamento. Hold up. Even with portamento, it seems to work. Then then again, it's also like a pain in the ass, so I just use my trackpad for that. So yeah, CANTOR responds pretty well to touch. Right here is your openness. I guess it kind of like imitates how open your singer is. Like, I'll turn it all the way up just to show you. You can notice that the consonants are not very pronounced. It's like she's like opening her mouth or some shit like that. Breath, naturally they will have breath. Also this is like enabled, but if you have this turned all the way down, I don't think this parameter can be edited. But if you want like no breath, you can just do that. Typically, whenever I am working on a cover, I turn down the breath and turn up the humanize. And then you have velocity, gender, and brightness. These are only edited by bars, so you just like move these bars up and down like you would basically like in Vocaloid or Open Utah, depending on like what setting you use. Gender, same thing. I mean, you can trans their gender if you really want to. Apparently this can imitate like childish voices, but we're not going to be doing that shit. And then brightness, pretty much the same deal. Up here where it says, Up here where it says, you know, volume detail, tension detail, this means that you can select just a note and, you know, edit it however you'd like without affecting the entire score. But, I mean, that's kind of for pussies. I mean, I would rather just, like, drag my finger, like, my mouse and just, you know, YOLO. Oh, yeah, I failed to mention up here in this floppy disk thing, render choir loop. I don't think I'll be demoing that, but you can render a realistic choir. I'm just not good at it because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Also, some other things, as you can see, there are different tracks, and you can see the notes, in front. You can just see the other notes and shit like that, and it comes up to 8 tracks. You can even use your, you know, keyboard to change between them. In order to, like, you know, say for example, you want to import your main melody here, you just click on import MIDI and do that. And then if you want to import your harmony, you go here and select import MIDI, and then you load your harmony like that. Also with these other slots, the default voice is Luther, who sounds like... So yeah, he's got a pretty nice voice in my opinion. I'd never like used him. Another thing is apparently you can import tuning or something like that. It's called microtuning, where you can save tuning or import tuning, which it comes with in CANTOR. I'm not going to be demonstrating that because I don't fully understand it, but you can fuck around and play with it. You know, read the manual, basically. And upon start, the default project is default.vcp. But if you want, you know, say for example, you want this to load upon start, you would just save this as, you know, a name, and then you could change the name to default.vcp. I'd assume that you'd have to like delete the original default.vcp, but you know, you can always just reverse that too. Alright, and moving on to the left side over here. This is semitone. You can make her... Honestly, if you turn Nikki down to like -2, she sounds hot. See, she sounds sexy. But her normal semitone thing is +12. I think this is like refining it or whatever. I really don't fucking know, and I don't care because I don't fuck with. So brightness imitates natural sound change at different levels. Ensemble emulates multiple voices for a realistic effect, and you would need more than one part for this to really work. I like to have a bit of ensemble to my voices, just because I guess it just... I don't know, it makes it sound pretty cool instead of just like being flat like this. But if you just want that, I would recommend turning it down, but I like a bit of ensemble. But if you turn it up, it's a bit more noticeable. Sounds like she's fucking growling, but okay. Metallic turns it from a harmonic partial structure to an inharmonic metallic one. Basically, I'm going to turn this all the way up for you. Humanize just randomizes pitch, level, vibrato, and depth for a natural touch. I like to turn this up all the way for all my voice banks. Balance is just level balance between voice and unvoiced phonemes. Basically, if you were to turn up balance, it helps, boost out consonants and stuff like that. It can also help boost vocals, and I want to get rid of this shit to demonstrate that. And then if you have it all the way down, again, over here, vibrato rate, and there's a setting in this tab where you can change how it affects the vibrato rate. Openness, have it all the way open. Or you can have it all the way down. Again, I generally have it down so that way it's more pronunciated, because CANTOR sometimes has a problem with not being as enunciated as it should be, and I'll also show you how to edit phonemes to make them, to make the consonants just pop. Oh, and yes, this gender parameter, it's pretty self-explanatory. Alright, so breath, it adds to the voice, can be changed in depth in the voice editor page. I typically have this all the way down too. But, I mean, with this, with the default version of Nikki, I like to have it, default, I guess. I like to have, a little breath of this, but in my Nikki modification, this is all the way down. Glide is pitch portamento between legato played notes, or basically it just, glides the pitch bends, watch this. Panning, you can pan to the left or the right channel within your fucking earbuds if you're wearing them. If not, you're not going to notice much of a difference. This right here is volume of the voice bank itself. Sometimes you'll need to turn it up because a lot of these voice banks are quiet. Alright, so we're going to move on to the voice tab. However, before I do that, I am going to be loading a project. And I'm going to be changing this to normal Nikki. Alright, so this is how Nikki sounds right here. She sounds really pretty, however, I hate that fucking breathiness she has, so remember, I did edit some parameters like tension. Also, I like to use tension on vibrato, just because it kind of enhances the vibrato a little bit, in my opinion, so I just do that. Moving on to the voice tab, you have basically where you can edit your vocals more in depth. So the left side of the window is low-pitched partials, and the right side is high-pitched partials. I really don't, say for example, if I, just drew, random shit. Also, whatever you do, do not fucking turn this down. You will go deaf. I'm dead serious. Even in the fucking manual, it says, CANTOR can produce loud noises, so if you go deaf, it's not on us. So I'm just, playing with, the partials, and this is what it would sound like. Or if I were to do something more... Oh, wait, don't mess that. Or if I were to just have it all the way up like this. Which, it does bring out the vocals a lot. This is basically how Bozich's partials look like. But I also set his to auto. Now, I don't know how exactly partials work, but they do. And you can play around with this setting too. Like, if she only had 2 partials, you sound like this. Down here is breath noise filter. It's only active if the breath parameter is turned up, and it only affects voice phonemes. So, basically, like your vowels and your non-frictive consonants, I believe, too. Now, if you're to hold this down and go to glottal filter, glottal filter basically influences the sound of the glottal source, controls overall sound characteristics of the voice. So this is what Nikki's voice, this is how it is by default. However, you can turn this down. I mean, you could just draw on like random lines if you really want to. It's really interesting to play with. Actually, I am going to turn off reverb. We'll be talking about this page in a moment. Alright, so due to Nikki's voice basically not fucking changing the way I want, which it is possible to change, trust me, because I have a modification of Nikki. So we're going to be using Nicholas. And his glottal filter is basically similar to Nikki's. I believe that, right, like doing that boosts the vocals a bit. See, now he sounds different. So if you were to play around with these lines or whatever, you'll get different results. So I like to change these parameters depending on the cover. Say, for example, if I want the voices to be quieter, I would just, lower all this. Or if I want it to be boosted, I can either have it all the way up or just like a big mountain. And over here you have your EQ high, mid, and low. For most voice banks, I turn up the mid and the high a little bit, along with the low. Now you can hear that his voice sounds more clear, and you don't have to turn up the volume for this. So that's a good way to edit that. I really don't know what the fuck these do, so I don't know, play around with them, I guess. So over here, this resin thing is the steepness of the voice, and it gives more definition to vowels. I usually like to have this all the way up. And I'll show you what it's like all the way down. Headphone warning. Yeah, it basically sounds like shit, but sometimes, with like bow stitches, I have it set to around like here, around like diagonally like that. Over here, again, openness, I guess it's just like how open the vocals sound, so I'll turn that all the way up. So yeah, it sounds a bit weird, so I just usually have that set to none. And if I do need that openness, I just adjust it here. Velocity right here, modulation by MIDI velocities, 0 decibels is no modulation, while 6D is max. So I guess I'm gonna like turn this up and see what happens. Or if I were to turn it all the way down. Sometimes I will turn it pretty much all the way down just to boost the vocals a little bit, or like at least have it like around here. Brightness, it modulates the brightness parameter, which is over here. So if I add more brightness to him, and if I even want more brightness, again, headphone warning. Now, if I were to turn down the brightness, like this, or like, you know, turn down the brightness here. I recommend sometimes, actually, usually I will have the brightness pretty much all the way up, unless if it sounds too loud. Then I turn it down here, because this pretty much only affects the score. While you can adjust the voice here and save it in the project file and it will load up, but you can also just save the voice that's modded and just use that, and it will keep these parameters too, which is kind of cool. Or if you just want, like, you know, or if you just want like a set like parameter for all this shit in one project, you can also do that. Over here is noise, I guess, mod. I assume that stands for noise modifier or modulation, whatever. I like to have this all the way up because this basically makes it sync up with this. So right now it's at 0. I mean, this is at 0, voice mod is at 100. Now, if I go over here and I just turn it all the way down, he sounds a bit more muffled and just like shit. Alright, and LFO mount is the modulation of vibrato intensity. So, I don't know exactly what all these are, but you can play around with it, like key track. Sounds like this. Alright, this is what key track in the positive sound like. Oh yeah, and bend up here, it just adjusts the bend range of the pitch bender. I don't know why I forgot to include that. Sustain mode, right here, it defines how CANTOR reacts on the sustain pedal. I like to set to legato, but sometimes it'll be set on pedal hold, but I prefer legato because it just sounds fancier. I really don't notice much of a difference, like sometimes there is a difference, but I just set to legato. Oh, and another side note that I forgot in the previous clip. With CANTOR, so this is why I like to use the phonemes instead. But if you use these lyrics here, and like you're typing in your lyrics and all that stuff, sometimes the phonemes will malfunction, meaning that either you can only hear like a distorted consonant, like the S, will just go like S, or like it'll just play like a second of a consonant, and like vowels will be like stretched out, and it's just gross. So yeah, sometimes it will do that. It does it more often if you're editing the lyrics themselves, which is why I stick to the phonemes, because you can get a lot done before it does that. The only remedy to, fix this is by saving your project, and then you close out of CANTOR, and then you reopen CANTOR, load up your project, and you can edit the phoneme and it should work, but in the case it doesn't, just edit the note really to any word and then edit the phoneme. So that's why you're going to want to learn alphabet, because I just recommend editing the phonemes. But the downside is that if you're editing just the phonemes, that's usually where you have to change the word and then the phoneme again. Whereas with just the lyrics, you just have to like retype the lyrics. Also, you cannot plug and play in CANTOR. You will have to go back and retype every fucking thing. But the bright side of that is that you can fix your phoneme and phoneme timing while you're, working on making this work. Alright, now moving on to the phoneme tab. Right here where you click on it, you can have copy set and paste set. So if you edit these phonemes, like, you know, we're going to choose a frictive for a moment. I believe, yeah, F will do. Say, for example, like another voice bank's F doesn't sound as pronounced as another voice bank's. So you can, you know, edit these, and then you just select copy set. And frankly, I don't fucking know how to, well, oh, yeah. So over here you select phoneme set, and then you can copy set, load up a voice bank, and then paste it, and it'll paste all these, I believe. I kind of don't know what these do. I mean, I probably have it written down somewhere, but it's kind of like, you know, draw and fuck around, I guess. Like that. Over here, I think this is the vocal cord simulation. And over here you can have like no edit links, link deep phone, frequency level, and link bandwidth. Again, I didn't really pay attention to this part of the manual because it was boring as fuck, and it doesn't really matter in my opinion, but this is how that would sound. I mean, I don't really notice much of a difference, so I mean, you could just kind of draw and fuck around with this, I guess. Over here, you have your level of phoneme and the timing of your phoneme. This applies to pretty much all the phonemes, I believe, except for vowels. But it can, yeah, basically just like no vowels or like anything like that. But whenever you edit frictive, plosive, frictive, so that way you don't have to worry about people not being able to understand your voice bank. With Bozich, I only really edited like the K and the P. I need to go through and actually edit his phonemes. Also, if you have like another voice bank loaded, like right here is Luther, you can also go through and mess around with their settings. Like you can switch between these settings too, which is pretty neat. But right here, hold on, I'm gonna show y'all something freaky. Using this. Okay, watch. Watch this. Yeah, this basically, this is like the vocal cords, I guess. It's really freaky and funky to look at this and watch it, so y'all can have fun with that. Alright, and then moving on to the effects tab. You have your distortion, and you can choose your type of distortion. I like to leave it at default, and I like to have it on because, again, it boosts the vocals. You can even turn up the level a little bit, the drive a little bit, and the tone a little bit, and it will sound like this. But you can actually have genuine distortion if you know, raise these knobs. This is echo and delay. There's a voice bank that is called Echo, and they just like have this on automatically, and this is what the echo and delay will sound like. Which I think is like pretty cool. You can also choose like mono delay. I personally like having it go like in and out of channels. And I guess stereo delay. So yeah, that's how echo and delay works. You can obviously like play around with it and get it working. I don't know what this MIDI thingy does, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to turn this off though. Over here is chorus. I am assuming this is what you would use if you were to render a choir, I think, but there's also like a few different settings for that, which I don't understand these, but whatever. Again, there is a user manual. And reverb, I like to have reverb on. I'm going to turn distortion back on. And with reverb, you can choose how much you want and how little you want, and you could even choose the room you want. So if you want, you know, a Taj Mahal, And again, you can change the amount of reverb there is. I usually do this because sometimes I want to add reverb while mixing instead. See, that sounds just a bit better. But yeah, I recommend just like playing around with all these settings, but I definitely recommend distortion and reverb. Again, you don't have to like turn these all the way up unless if you want actual distortion. Just, give it a little nudge. Oh yeah, another side note, vibrato rate, you can only set it to one setting, and that you cannot just like, have like a growl here and then a normal vibrato here. Whatever you set your vibrato rate to is what you set it to. Alright, and finally we are moving into the mixing tab. Right here, you can also change your voice speak from here. You cannot see, but it loads a prompt. Or you can just, change it from here too, I guess. Like, you could select 2 and then change it. And then, it has like your MIDI channels. And with MIDI import, if you just want the MIDI to import automatically to like, channel 7, I guess. Don't know why you would, but if you want that, it can do that. Or if it has like multiple channels and you load in a MIDI, it will just like load up to, like, it'll load up to 8 of them, but you have more options because MIDIs sometimes have multiple channels. So say, for example, if you just want 2, 6, 8, 11, 13, 14, 15, you can do that. Right here is key split low, key split high. I'm assuming this is for when you just have like a keyboard that's plugged into CANTOR, because yes, like Vocaloid and some other synthesizers, this does support MIDI keyboards, which I do have, but I'm not going to demo it here. So if you want to, just have the key split low, around like these octaves, and then like on the right side, these octaves, you can just do that, I guess. Right here is reverb for this specific channel. So even if I have like reverb off, and is there a reverb thingy here? No, there isn't, but if I were to, yeah, okay. So if I have like reverb off completely, I can add reverb like this just for this track. Or maybe it doesn't work because I don't have the chorus on. No. Actually, you have to enable the reverb. I did not know it's going to do that. Otherwise, I would put a headphone warning, but yes, it does that. If you have the reverb like all the way up, which is why I turn it pretty much down. Again, panning is just, right, left channel, and the level, you can change the volume for each track. Over here are your choir settings. I assume that you have to enable chorus. And this is how many voices you want in the choir. And again, it's highly recommended to have ensemble at least like a little bit activated and have multiple parts. Jitter is what time each voice starts, because in choirs, sometimes they don't start at the same time perfectly. Detune, I forgot what the fuck that does. Panning, I guess you can have different singers pan to like different different parts. So you can have like a bunch of singers on the right side, some in the middle, and some on the left. Gender, explanatory, kind of. You can have a gender variety within your choir. Again, we already went over MIDI import. Oh dear lord. Oh, that just crashed CANTOR. That's kind of funny. So this button is for when you want to just crash CANTOR. Okay, so yes, this is the global reverb. It is shared by all parts and only exists once. Not only saved in the project and not the voice presets. So this only affects the file in its entirety, not your voice preset. And you can just like adjust the overall volume of all of the parts here. So yes, that is the that is the exploration part of CANTOR. Another fun fact, CANTOR does come with project files, and I'll be demonstrating them here. Not all voices have project files, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to substitute that with Lola by the Kinks, because I want to demo every voice in its naturality. And I might even throw up my personal designs for these voice banks. It's just a few, and there's more to come.
Hey, hey, give me your answer. I'm crazy. I'm of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage. But you look sweet upon the heat of a bicycle built for two.
Ich bin ein Boot, Winkel von Frankenstein, mein Besitz, ich bin nicht im Boot. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Hey, hey, give me your answer. I'm half crazy. I'm for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage. But you look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
Oh, oh no, hey, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, hey, oh no, oh no. Hey, Daisy, Daisy, won't you beg for me? Oh no, hey, superstar.
Hey, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. Hey,
Ich weiß nicht, was bei mir. Ich weiß nicht, was bei mir. I don't know what will be. Ich einmal und ich auf. Meine Taten und Lehren.
Stop. Stop. Will you stop? Hey. Will you stop? Hey. Stop. Hey. I'm afraid.
When's the voice of CANTOR?
So, in conclusion, CANTOR is a really nice program with some faulty things going on. I mean, this software is almost 20 years old. Like, give it like 4 more years, I guess. But, CANTOR, the original CANTOR was released in 2004, so there are some perks to CANTOR, such as being able to draw pitch bends onto the note. Vocaloid, you need to catch up. Same with like vibrato, and you can make them growl in the editor. And again, you can customize the voices as much as you want / need to. And you can basically like create your own character like I did with Bozich. Bozich is just a modified Hall 1. But yes, this obscure little vocal synthesizer, it really does deserve some more recognition, especially because it's really not a terrible software. It's just that some people don't know how to use it entirely correctly. So yeah, I recommend CANTOR to those who are more experienced with vocal synthesis or just like toying around with it. I wouldn't say it's harder than Utao, but it's a little bit more tricky. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys, and I hope that I've changed your mind on CANTOR. And I hope that someday you might purchase it, or there's a demo version that you can use, but you need the dongle. So you can either spend $300 plus $40 if it's shipping to the US on CANTOR and a dongle, or you can just spend $40 on a dongle and have it shipped here, or you can be a fucking pirate. And also, don't bother with like trying to emulate a dongle. I literally like spent like a whole day trying to do that until someone pointed out that like, oh, here's CANTOR, go download that. And I was like, oh, fuck yes. I hope you guys liked this tour / exploration / tutorial of CANTOR. And there might be some things that I have glossed over. But again, there's a user manual, so go nuts and goodbye. I've recorded this several fucking times, and I hope that this is sufficient. Goodbye.